I'm so happy that we're in Halloween Horror Nights season again.
It's exciting times around here.
Just the air feels spooky. Everything just feels better during Halloween.
I agree.
It's the most wonderful time of
And
the
it's
year.
not quite starting to get cooler yet, but you know it's right around the corner down here.
I mean, define cooler.
86.
I mean,
We're getting there.
my birthday's around the corner, and that usually means we have like 3 cold days coming up soon.
Right, exactly.
But it's not going to be like cold, but we do look forward to those. But also, we have been looking forward for a while to Halloween Horror Nights, and we have been doing our best to get to Halloween Horror Nights to try to go through all 10 houses, all 5 scare zones, and to see Nightmare Fuel. We haven't even gotten to try any food.
Yeah, we haven't tried any of the spooky treats yet from any of the booths. We've had one drink at the bar, the Wolfman Bar. It used to be the Peacock Bar last year.
Yeah.
Over by San Francisco.
It's hard to really say that we had one drink because it is the same drink that if I'm going to get a drink, I get anywhere.
That's true. That's true.
It's hard to...
Vodka cranberry with a splash of pineapple.
I think it's called a Bay Breeze.
A Bay Breeze.
But I will never, ever say, can I please get a Bay Breeze?
Yeah, no, that feels like a weird drink to order.
I feel like people would be like...
Can I have sex on the beach?
Can I have a pina
You
colada?
won't catch me dead saying that.
Can you imagine ordering a pina colada at Halloween Horror Nights?
I cannot.
Can I please have a summer drink in the middle of
Summer
September?
drink makes me feel fine.
They are good though.
They are.
But yeah, we haven't had any snacks. We've had like one drink and that's it so far. We have been rocking and rolling at Halloween Horror Nights, and now we can finally give our beginning of the season rankings. We'll say it that way.
So what we wanted to do was complete all 10 houses, go through all 5 scare zones, see Nightmare Fuel, and then we're going to do this really fun game where we're basically going to rank everything out of 100. So Danny's going to rank everything out of 50. I'm going to rank everything out of 50. We're going to add them together, math, and then we're going to get everything ranked out of 100 during this episode, whether it be all 10 houses, all 5 scare zones, and Nightmare Fuel. So we got a long episode ahead of us. So why don't we get a crackin'?
I say, let's do it.
Are you ready?
I'm ready for it.
Are you ready?
Boom,
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 boom.
All right. So the first house that we're going to cover is one of the IP houses this year, and it is A Quiet Place. Silence is survival. Make a sound, and you won't last long. Monstrous creatures will hunt you down as the world of the first 2 films comes to terrifying life. Now, what did you think of this house, Danny?
So out of my 50 points, I gave this 40 points. And a little.
Shh.
And
That's funny.
I also gave it a one shh. Now, one thing is this house is not quiet. I think that when you're doing like a house that has jump scares and people screaming, it's really hard to have a quiet house.
Yes.
But I will say that this house felt the most like Stranger Things did last year, which was overwhelmingly, it felt like you were walking directly into the show or movie.
Yes, it did.
Now, I gave it a 40 because I thought it was so well done, but when we went through it, we missed like, I don't know, 70% of the scares because of just timing.
We've only been through this house once, and I thought we had, for lack of better terms, a lackluster run. What I mean by that is that doesn't mean the house is bad. It just means we were kind of poorly timed throughout the whole thing, where stuff either happens a few people ahead of you or behind you. And for me, this time it was behind me. And so I definitely want to go through this house several more times just to get that timing right and give it a fair assessment. And that's why we're doing like this kind of initial reaction, like first run type stuff. And funny enough, I actually gave it a 40 as well. 40 out of 50. So that brings us to a total of 80. So 40 and 40 is 80. That's a pretty good score for a house. That's not bad at all.
Right off the bat.
Especially considering, like Danny said, we didn't have the best run, but we had actually watched A Quiet Place 1 and 2 prior to going into this house. And there was a lot of really, really cool details from those films and characters and set design from those films that were in the house. So it really, truly did feel like you're walking through it.
Yeah, when we watched those, I really enjoyed those movies more than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
But we still haven't watched the newest one.
Right, yeah. A Quiet Place Day 1, I guess, is a prequel. I think it's the
first day.
Like the first day of every, day 1, day 1-ish. It's basically like how everything happened on day 1 from what I've gathered, and I really do want to watch that. I think that's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, we agree. 40 and 40 is 80 for A Quiet Place. Now, what we're going to do in this episode, we're going to kind of bounce back and forth. There's not as many IP houses as there are non-IP houses this year. Usually it's 5 and 5, but this year it's 4 and 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to bounce back and forth between IP and non-IP until we run out of IP. So do you have something to say?
I was just going to say, I know I already said it, but there are 10 houses we're going to go through.
That's right.
And were we going to do the final house rankings after we're done with the houses or at the very end?
We'll put it at the end of the houses. We'll go over our final added up rankings and show that to you right on the screen, because that's what we do here.
And also, if you are listening anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts, we are going to be verbally walking you through all of this. And don't forget to leave us a review, subscribe, listen, tell your friends. And all of that goes a long way to help us. But
and one really cool thing you can do now on Spotify, if you're listening to this on Spotify, you can actually leave a comment on the episode.
Leave a comment.
I want to see comments. Send us some comments on this episode. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool to you guys start using that feature.
Yeah.
And let Spotify know that you're listening.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. All right. So we're done with The Quiet Place. Let's move on to our first non-IP house that we're going to cover, and that is Major Sweet's Candy Factory.
They've got a killer sweet tooth. You're chaperoning a field trip to a candy factory when the free samples transform the kids into candy-coated killers.
This house, I was hoping was going to be like a creepy Willy Wonka. That's what I was hoping for. Instead, it was like Vomit Palooza. It was gross. It was left and right, just characters and mannequins and things just covered in or actually vomiting. And I don't know what Major Sweets puts in his candy, but you couldn't catch me dead eating anything from that brand right now. It was, if you can't do vomit, do not go through Major Sweets Candy Factory. It was gross. Wasn't my favorite house of the year, although they did a good job with the set design and some of the jump scares were really solid. But I went ahead and gave it a 34 out of 50.
Well, I'm not that far behind you. I gave this house a 29.
Love your little drawings.
With a tiny person vomiting, because you are right. This house was Vomit Palooza, which is a terrible fun word.
Right.
That is not how you want a palooza to be. Simba's birthday is a Simba Palooza. Fun. Vomit Palooza at a house, not so fun. I was also hoping that it was kind of like a spooky Willy Wonka. I also thought people said that there was more stuff about dentists in that.
I didn't notice anything about dentists. Maybe I totally missed it because we've only been through it once.
I was looking for it because I've been had some dental stuff that's been going on.
Scarring.
Yeah. I thought I would notice it, and I was looking for it. And there's one part in the house where somebody is vomiting or pretending to vomit, and there's basically you get sprayed with water.
Oh yeah. Ugh.
And it hit me right in the face. And all I could think was wow, if I was one of those people who threw up when other people were throwing up,
yeah,
if it literally hit me in the face.
That might be like a panic attack moment for some people, which is crazy.
Yeah. I remember just saying, ew, he threw up on me. And I just kept walking. Like, what else do you say?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to a field trip to a candy factory. That literally sounds like the Willy Wonka film. And I don't know what I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't vomit.
I just feel like it would have been better named like, I don't know, the vomit field trip or something like that.
Right.
There was way less candy than when there was vomit. So
there's so many different colored vomit too.
that is a terrible sentence.
There was one figure that I vividly remembered from going through that house where this victim was like laying on the ground or laying on like a flat surface. And there was like a tube going into their mouth and it was just like pumping white liquid into their mouth.
There was it was
like, oh my gosh.
But there was another one where they basically did the same thing but have it coming out like the I think it was just like a mannequin or something was like leaning over something and it was just like like nonstop and it was just like I don't know, it's not really wasn't my favorite. Wasn't a jump scare, but honestly they did a good job, so that's why I gave it a 29.
Yeah. So with my 34 and Danny's 29, that brings the total for Major Sweets Candy Factory to 63. 63. That's a little bit lower than the 80 that we gave A Quiet Place.
Yes.
So right now, Quiet Place number 1, Major Sweets number 2. We're going to move on to our next house, and that was Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. He'll chill you to the bone. An ancient artifact has released a chilling new entity, Garaka. He'll stop you cold. Only the Ghostbusters can keep you from getting iced. And not like putting a Smirnoff ice somewhere where you have to get down on one knee and drink the whole thing. Actually iced. It was freezing cold in some of that house, and it was so refreshing when we were walking through. There was one point, I don't know if you guys have to see the actual Ghostbusters Frozen Empire movie because the house was really true to the film. And there's one scene where you go in and you see the iconic firehouse, and it's like frozen over like the Ice Age. It's everything's white. Everything's really cool projection mapping where everything looks like it's covered in ice and snow, and it's freezing in that room. And in Florida in the summer, that right there gets it like 5 to 10 extra points because you go through this house and you're freezing. It's like, oh yeah, I want to keep going through this house because it's that cool.
In that room, I said to the team member, I said, so you got placed in the best room in the house, and he goes,
they have the best, the most seniority. Gets the frozen room in the Ghostbusters. Also, can we talk about the little Stay Puffs? Because I have a feeling you're going to talk about it. So I'm going to give my score real quick. I gave it a 38 out of 50.
Look, you drew
I did a little boo.
Oh, you did a little boo. Oh, you did
a little boo. Not the iconic pumpkin little boo, but a little ghost that says boo. I figured I'd make a little drawing like you have been.
I love it.
All right, Danny, take it away.
So I gave this house a 45 out of 50.
That's a big score.
So the reason for that was I thought, first off, I'd never seen Ghostbusters, at least not that I remember.
Yeah.
And we watched it together, and I was like,
we watched the OG.
I was like, this movie is not great. Why is Bill Murray acting like he's sexy? Why is he hitting on everything? This is very confusing for me.
It's like more like real life Bill Murray.
But I was like, when I was watching it, I was like, ooh, why is he hitting on everything that moves?
Yeah.
Like, and then at the end, he gets the hot girl.
Hey.
Which is so like.
He busted all those ghosts.
I'm sure he did. Yes, he did. But
saved the world. That's hot.
No, it's not hot enough.
And his name is Bill. Duh.
I mean, he's got that going for him. But the second movie, Frozen Empire, I liked a little bit better. It was the little Stay Puffs were so stinking cute, and they were everywhere. And just in the house, these guys were everywhere. So it really felt like you were walking into that movie, and a lot of the like characters that they had hired as the like entertainment, they looked so much like the characters from the movies.
Yes.
And so they took you through a lot of scenes. All the little Stay Puffs actually moved around.
Fun fact, shout out to Allison Loggins, one of my friends that I work with. She actually did a really cool behind the scenes tour of the houses. You actually get to go through the houses with the lights on. So you can actually see everything kind of how it works. She posted on her Instagram story that there are over 80 mini puffs in the house, and that's what they kind of look like. But there's so many different facial expressions, and they're moving, like Danny said. It's just like, it's so fun to walk through and try to pick out all the different Stay Puffs.
And they're all kind of like, they're not just cute. Like one of them looks like he's on a stripper pole, and he's like, they're like swinging around it. And some of them are like stabbing each other. Some of them are like cooking each other. Like they're like just tiny, evil, adorable little like marshmallow delights. But overall, like there were a lot of things. Slimer was in the house, and that was a really fun scare. And just like larger than life, boom, like right in front of you. And I just think,
and Garaka, the guy who's in the graphic right there, the tall guy, like there was a really tall Garaka in there, like on stilts. It was very cool.
Yeah. So I just felt like it felt very much like you were walking into the movie. It was fun. There was always something to look at. There were good scares. And that's what I want from a house. I want a good experience.
Yeah.
And the first experience,
it was great.
Right out of the bat, was amazing. And not only that, the timing was great for both of us for all of the scares.
Right.
So, yeah, 45 for me.
Yeah. So with Danny's 45 and my 38, that makes a total of 83, eclipsing A Quiet Place right now as the leader in the clubhouse. 83 is the top score right now for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. All right. So let's move on to our next non-IP house, and that is Goblin's Feast. They'll feast on your flesh. Enter a goblin village where a feast is being prepared for goblins, orcs, hobgoblins, and witches. And you, yes, you, are the main course. I was not a fan of this house. I did not really think that the characters themselves were scary at all. When you think of goblins, the first thing that pops in my head is the Wizarding World, and these were not the little people goblins. They were like regular human-sized goblins,
right?
And that's not what I expected. Some of the set design was kind of cool, but most of the gore was pretty gross. I didn't really follow the story much in this house. I found myself kind of bored and hoping it was over at one point. So with that said, I'm going to give this one a 25 out of 50. I'll give it half credit.
Half credit.
Yes.
Well, that's very generous of you because I gave this house a 20.
Whoa.
And if you look at my little person, I'm honest.
What is that?
That's what the goblins look like. I felt
tree?
like. No, they all had like faces that were just like had just wavy edges. Like they just look like smushed faces, I feel like.
They were pretty weird looking.
So the thing about Halloween Horror Nights is for some reason, ever since we've started going yearly, I think that there is one house every year that looks like somebody said, I don't know what to do. Let's go to Spirit Halloween and see what they have a lot of. And it feels like they got a lot of goblin masks, so they made a house about it. Because the goblin masks, to me, just felt like very uninspired. The scares were always like, you saw them coming for some reason in this house.
Yeah.
I don't think I had any jump scares. There was one.
I agree.
There was one point where there, on your left, there was like a giant goblin in a kitchen or like in a dining room, and he was really big, but he was just there. And I was like, oh. So that's the only reason it wasn't lower, because I was just like, this house is very like Spirit Halloween Party City vibes for me. It just felt very uninspired and no scares. So with my 20 and your 25, that
makes a total of 45.
Oof.
So rough score there for Goblin's Feast. From what I've gathered, a lot of people felt the way that we do, that Goblin's Feast is probably the worst house this year. Not to say that the people who worked really hard on it did a bad job. It's just you had a lot of really tough competition this year. And you did a good job for what you had, but I didn't really like this house much at all. And I probably, we're going to go a couple of times with some friends and family that are only going to go one time. So we'll probably end up going through it again.
Right.
But if it was up to me, I'd probably skip it. But Goblin's Feast 45, not fantastic.
Yeah. And for all of these houses, we'll at least go through one more time before the end of the season so that we can give an end of the season review.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Danny, you want to take the next one?
I do. Insidious, The Further. It's not the house that's haunted, you are. Enter the Further as demons try to ensnare you. The red-faced demon will lure you into his lair. Keyface will unlock your fears and more. Keyface is a terrible name. It's
like Taserface.
That's what we kept talking about when we were watching the movie. Now,
Yep.
here's the thing about this. This movie was terrible.
The original one had like a $1.8 million budget. You could definitely tell while you were watching it, although it did come out, I think, in 2011, I want to say.
Something like that.
Somewhere around there. Or it might have even been 2008. I think it was 2011. But it was very campy.
So here's the thing. It felt like it had a low budget. And if you've never seen it, close your ears for a second. It feels like a really cool, scary movie. And then they're like, oh, the house isn't haunted. Your son's haunted. But now you have to go do something weird and magical to go find him.
Right.
And also, there's this guy who kind of looks like spooky Darth Maul. Like, I just, oh my goodness, I don't like this song.
Can't play too much of it.
I was going to say, can we play that?
As long as it's underneath us, we're good.
Okay, so here's the thing. I've heard that people like the other movies. Fine. We haven't watched them. The first one is terrible. It had no budget and scary, spooky Darth Maul that it was like nothing.
But there's like 4 of them.
Scare zone.
I definitely want to watch the rest of them for
There's
sure.
also like 18 Fast and the Furious. That is
those movies are not good.
that is not a good like yardstick for how good a movie is. But the house, on the other hand, I gave a 39.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be the little red and like the guy, the little scary guy with his spiky head.
With his blue face.
Yeah.
I have the red marker. No, I'm going to give it a 43 because I really liked the house. I thought there was a couple of really cool scares in there. People were saying that the Insidious house might be the scariest house they've ever done at Halloween Horror Nights. And I didn't get that per se, but I thought it was really good. 43, Tiptoe Through the Tulips. That's what I want to write on the little marker board here.
Is that what they say?
Yeah, tiptoe through the tulips. Yeah.
All I hear is, you know what I thought they said? Tiptoe through the window.
Well, yeah. He does say tiptoe to the window.
Oh,
at
he does
one
say
point.
window.
Yeah.
Okay. I actually have never even cared to find out what the words are.
Google it. It's Tiptoe Through the Tulips with Me by Tiny Tim.
I prefer my words.
There's a lot of T's there. Tiptoe
I
Through
think
the
like
Tulips with Tiny Tim.
it sounds like the Swedish chef is singing it.
Oh my gosh.
So Insidious, with my 39 and your 43, gives us 82.
82. It's 1 point behind Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. 82 for Insidious the Further. That's pretty solid.
That is pretty solid, especially for a movie that had like a nothing budget for movies.
Yeah, right. All right. Do you want to take the next one again, Danny?
Yeah. So, Monstrous, the monsters of Latin America. Monstrous, the monster. Oh, I'm repeating
I
myself.
think it's Monstrous.
Monstrous. I feel like I'm reading a menu right now. Just always mispronouncing. Monstros, the monsters of Latin America. Tres monstros, una pesadilla, ten cuidado. I can't talk.
It's 10 cuidado. I think it means be careful.
10 cuidado. With La Muerte as your guide, try to survive the night with 3 terrifying legends.
Oh boy.
Bli, bli, bli.
Twelpucci?
La Lucchesa and El Silban. Guys, I'm so sorry if you're listening to this.
Wow.
It's just, I, that was not good.
That was tough.
that was
That was tough. That wasn't easy. This house surprised me. And I guess Monstrose was in Universal Hollywood for Halloween Horror Nights last year. I don't know if it was the exact same house, but it was the same kind of theme. And apparently it was one of the best houses out there. When we walked in one night, we were going to meet some friends. And Monstrose is actually the first house on your left. When you get into the Minions area, there's the first house is right there. And you walk down inside Stage 21, iconic. Global Guts and Legends of the Hidden Temple, TNA Wrestling, everything was in there.
Yes.
But you go in, and this house completely shocked me. I thought it was great. It wasn't the best house I've been through, but when you see a house that was 10 minutes when we walked in, that's why we immediately went in. We saw the 10-minute wait, and we were like, oh, yeah, let's go knock this one out real quick. And it was great. The set design was awesome. Some of the characters were fantastic. Some of them were huge. There was a couple of animatronic, I think, or puppet characters in there that were super impressive. There was one scare in particular that made me jump pretty good. And there was a huge monstrose that popped out of his little spot, like right at you. But he was like 4 or 5 times the size of me. Like it was huge.
Right.
Super impressive design. Lots of really good jump scares. I recommend this house, and I gave it a 39.
So I gave this house a 32. I did not know how to draw. I couldn't even say the words. You think I can
Monstrous.
can draw something about
Yeah.
it? But I mean, this house gave me a lot of good scares. I felt like when we were going through the house, I was like, what is that? What is that? I don't recognize any of these things, but it offered a lot of good scares. I wanted to give it more than half the points because I think they did a good job on the theming. It did feel like Latin America in there also. So I think that I definitely want to give it another walkthrough to try to experience that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like half of me was expecting to recognize some things and I didn't recognize anything. But yes, also that animatronic or the big puppet, I can't really tell what it was.
Yeah, it felt like an animatronic.
So impressive. I love seeing that kind of stuff. So yeah, I gave it 32 points.
And I gave it 39, so that brings us a total of 71.
That passing grade.
C's get degrees. Monstros, the monsters of Latin America, 71. Not bad. All right. The last IP house, technically, because it is a Universal IP, was Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. All female, all fearless, all fatal. Get caught in an epic battle as Saskia Van Helsing and the Bride of Frankenstein go up against Dracula's daughter and her monstrous mavens. I thought this house was pretty cool. One thing that really did it for me for this house was that it was very long. I really appreciated that. I felt like there was 2 or 3 times where I thought we were done and it just kept going. And I thought that was really cool. They put a lot of work into it, a lot of pride into it. The characters were great. I think it's kind of like a preamble to what we're going to see with Victoria Frankenstein over at Epic Universe in the Universal Monsters area. What's it called? Dark Universe. That we're gonna see over in Epic. Lots of female coverage, lots of female representation in the Universal Monsters lore now. And I think that's super cool that we're inventing new characters as well, like Victoria Frankenstein. But we've got the Bride of Frankenstein, who is iconic. Van Helsing, iconic. The house wasn't my favorite, but I loved the fact that it was long, and it felt like, what was the name of the house last year that had that voice? It was extra. Like it really had that kind of vibe to it. I think that was the Universal Monsters house last year too.
I think so.
But I don't remember the name of it.
Extra,
Unmasked,
read
maybe?
Oh yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
but it was had that feel where you were kind of zigzagging through like almost felt like an old castle.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. But it wasn't my favorite house, but it was pretty solid, so I gave it a 33, and there's my little Frankenstein there.
So I gave this house a 35. So I look at,
Is that Frankenstein?
yeah.
You know the bolts are on his neck, right? you gave him pigtails. That's Lisa Frankenstein.
Oh no! I haven't looked at a Frankenstein in a while. I
that's
just put
funny.
the bolts on his head. You know what I was thinking? Like when Regina George gets hit by the bus in Mean Girls, and she has the thing in her head, so because she has like the neck brace. I think that's
so funny.
For some reason I was thinking like that it was in his head.
That's really funny.
Oops.
What do you think of this house?
I'm not. Here's the thing, and I'm just gonna say this. I've been saying this since they announced Dark Universe. Am I super excited about Dark Universe? And I think it's going to feel like Halloween Horror Nights all year round. Absolutely.
Side note, on my hoodie here, that's the Bride of Frankenstein right there.
Oh, I could have cheated and looked at your...
Right there.
I could have looked to see where the bolts came from. Aww.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I'm not really like a big Monsters fan, like classic Monsters per se. I feel like I'm mostly indifferent. So when they announced the house, I was like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think they did a good job in having a lot of good scares. The house was long, and the thing is, it's so frustrating when you wait so long to go through a house and it's done in like 30 seconds. Some houses do sometimes feel a lot shorter, and that can be really frustrating after waiting a long time to go through a house. So overall, I think they did a fantastic job. I'm super excited to see more of the monsters in like Dark Universe that we recognize, like the Wolfman and like Frankenstein with the bolts coming out of his head / neck. Just kidding.
It's coming out of his temples. It's pretty funny.
How I drew him with it coming out of his temples.
Well done, Danny.
I didn't mean to. Maybe.
For those of you wondering what we're talking about, if you watch this show on youtube.com/a couple of park hoppers, you can see Danny's incredible drawings.
It's gone now. You have to go back and see it.
Just rewind it.
But overall, I do feel like they did a great job on the house. I think they put a lot of care into it. And I think because we are going to see that theming, like I said, it's not my favorite thing, but I am very excited about Dark Universe.
Yes, for sure.
And so I also want to give it a chance. You know what I mean? It's just not like I don't seek out that kind of... Is it considered IP?
Yeah.
I don't seek out that IP.
It's Universal Monsters. It's intellectual property.
But if it's there, I enjoy.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. But with my 35...
and my 33, that gives us a total of 68 for Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. Bloodlines. All I can think of is Roman Reigns.
No.
Acknowledge him.
No,
He's
never.
the OTC, the over-the-counter chief.
No Roman Reigns, not ever.
All right. Let's move on to the next house, which was the one I was probably looking forward to the most outside of the IPs, and that is Slaughter Cinema 2. Get ready for the final cut. It is time for another horror movie marathon at the Cary Drive-In. Scream through scenes from creature features, grindhouse gore, and more. Now, go ahead.
So I was going to say I very much liked this house.
Me too.
I had zero expectations of this house. Slaughter Cinema, I assumed it had something to do with the movies. And it had everything to do with the movies. So everywhere you saw, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like nods to different movies and different, well-loved, just, I keep saying movies, but movies that people have seen. And then there were so many.
But all the films were made up in there.
But some of the posters on the wall.
Right.
And then there was one scene that there was like a giant shark.
Oh yeah.
It was like
It looked like Jaws.
It looked like Jaws. So I just assumed that that's what it was supposed to be, like a nod to, like the, because where was Slaughter Cinema? Was it where Chucky was last year?
No, that's where Major Suites was.
Okay.
It was further down by Men in Black.
Because I'm wondering if, oh yeah, it was. I was going to say if it was over near where Jaws used to be, but it was nowhere close.
Well,
But
Diagon Alley is where Jaws used to be.
But I gave it a 40.
Yeah, Slaughter Cinema was awesome. Every single film was an original creation that you walked through, and I didn't count how many there were, but I think there was like 8 that we walked through. It felt like it never ended. It was a really long house. The only complaint that I had was that the rooms were small. And these like walking through each scene was kind of short.
Yeah, that was true.
I felt like I wanted to see more of each one. There was everything from something with the shark. I don't remember the names of the films. There was like a mummy stripper room. There was
there was
all kinds of crazy. There was Mardi Gras Murders, I think it was called, where there was a scare actor in there that was like pretending to flash, and then like you go around the corner and she's dead. It's like, oh, this is crazy. So there was all kinds of fun, like original idea films inside Slaughter Cinema too.
But I also feel like they were supposed to like be symbolic to other like well-known movies.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, there was definitely nods there for sure.
Like to give you the vibe of like what it feels like to go to the movies.
Yeah, yeah. So with that said, it was one of my favorite houses. I will definitely go through it many more times because I want to kind of look out for details and see what else I missed the first time, if there's anything new or anything that's missing. So with that said, I gave it a 42. That was one of my favorite houses. So with my 42, did you show yours?
I did.
Yeah, with my 42 and Danny's 40, that brings us to 82. That is tied with, I believe, I think it was Insidious. Yes, Insidious.
Ooh.
Tied with 82, which is actually both of them are 1 point behind Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. So right now, Ghostbusters is still king in our rankings, but these two are very, very close. All right, moving on to our next house.
Which is?
And that was?
The Museum Deadly Exhibits. This relic will leave you in ruins. A folklore museum's newest exhibit, The Rotting Stone, has released an evil spirit that decays everything. And it's coming for you.
All right. So, the Museum Deadly Exhibits.
So, I think that this house felt like if you walked into Night at the Museum, but if it was a scary movie and gross.
It felt to me like A Night at the Museum and The Mummy had like a love child.
Yeah. I think that they did a good job of actually making you feel like you were walking through a museum. I feel like a lot of people in their life have gotten to go to museums on things like field trips or things like that, or just, visiting cities when you're traveling. And it really felt like that. And the, what did they say? It was what took over the museum? It was like a virus or an
evil spirit.
Okay. That decays everything. It really, really felt like it had taken over the museum. Whatever it was.
That glowing green thing?
Yeah, the evil spirit that was decaying everything was everywhere. It was very obvious that it had overtaken it and had turned it into something that it wasn't supposed to be. So I do think that they did a good job on that. I don't remember having any particularly good scares. I just really like the theming. So there's the museum artifact and a 38 on my little board.
All right. Well, I gave it a 31. It wasn't my favorite house. I didn't really have any jump scares like Danny was saying. But I thought it was really cool that like this green moss like goo thing was kind of everywhere and it was glowing. So that was really neat. That was kind of like a theme throughout the whole house. I did like how it felt like I was going through the queue of the Mummy a couple of times. Like I wanted to yell out, this house would be so much better if I had my cup of coffee. It's one of those things that you just think of Brendan Fraser when you're going through this house here. Wasn't my favorite, but it was pretty solid. I'd go through it again. But with Danny's 38 and my 31, that gives a total of 69. Nice. That's a nice score, 69 right there. Museum, the museum, Deadly Exhibits 69. All right, so
We have one last
we
house.
have one more, and I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to let Danny kind of say something. So, Triplets of Terror, the party's over, and so are you. And you're invited to the Barmy Triplets' birthday celebration. But their kind of party involves recreating the murders of their entire family. Take it away.
So, all my friends listening on YouTube, or if you're listening to us anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts, have you ever heard of a website called doesthedogdie.com?
No.
Well, that's a website that lets you know if the dog dies in the movie, so you don't have to watch the movie and be devastated. Well, in this house, I was warned, thank goodness, that there is a dead dog on top of like a washer in the laundry room. And because of that, I did not want to go through the house. Party foul, no, bad, don't like it at all. Take it back. 0 for you, house. No, bad. How dare you?
Keep in mind that's a personal opinion. It's not bad just because you said it's bad.
Oh, well,
but there's a reason you didn't go through it, and I totally respect that.
Half of our party decided not to go through once they found that out.
Yeah.
I personally think that a lot of people, when they watch movies, like scary movies, they'll be like, oh, look, people are getting like slaughtered and, unalived left and right. But if something happens to an animal, they're like, I'm out. Let's turn it off.
I get it.
And I just think that for me, I don't even care what you did.
Yeah.
I just
get it.
I just don't.
I totally get it.
So
I will tell you honestly, I went through the house. I will tell you honestly, I wasn't looking for the dog, and I never saw the dog. I don't know where it might be,
It's in the laundry
where
room.
this washing machine and whatever is, but I never noticed it because I wasn't looking for it. I liked the house. I thought it was really cool. I actually had one of my favorite scares from all of the houses thus far. There was one point, and it's the Triplets of Terror. So you've got these 3 murderous children, and there's one point where it totally got me. Towards the end of the house, I won't tell you where, but there was one point where one of the triplets popped out on my left, one of them popped out on my right, and then the other one was coming at me. And it was like, ah! Like it scared the crap out of me. One of the best jump scares in all of Halloween Horror Nights this year. I really enjoyed the house. Wasn't my favorite, but it was pretty solid, and I gave it a 37. So if we want to score it that way,
yes, we do.
it's 37 and 0. So it's a total of 37. Unfortunately, we won't be able to fairly grade this house, but that's our opinions, and that's what we came up with. Danny did not want to go through the house, and I totally respect that. And I gave it a 37, so that's what we end up with a total for 37 for the Triplets of Terror.
I have no regrets. Sorry,
Yeah.
not sorry.
No, you shouldn't.
I feel like they can do a lot of horrible looking stuff at Horror Nights, I draw the line at dead pets.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that didn't go through The Exorcist last year because there's a lot of people who can't do like the demonic, like satanic stuff.
Right.
And I totally respect that. I, for one, will always go through every single house just to see it. But I totally understand why somebody wouldn't for certain reasons.
And I just feel like, and half the party that we were with decided this, that if we saw that, not knowing what it was going to look like, it would ruin our night.
Sure.
And I think that says a lot when you're going through gory houses to, have that.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't love that. I definitely go through that if I hear that they take it out, because I've heard a lot of people saying similar things, that they either like thought that was too far or they refused to go through the house because of that. So, maybe I'll go through it later if we find out that they that they fix that.
I mean, I'll go through it again and actively look and see if I can find the dog.
Yeah.
Because that stuff is sad. Like dead animals and pets and stuff is super sad. But like if I know that it's not real, I think I can kind of suspend the disbelief. and so it doesn't bother me to see it in like a situation like this.
Sure.
But in real life, that would devastate me.
I also do want to say that I understand that I'm explaining that we have gone through 9 other houses where people have been unalived,
Right.
brutally, like
Vomiting.
just vomiting, like all of these horrible things. And I'm just like, I draw the line at this. And you know what? I'm okay with that. But
Yeah.
I definitely hear myself. Don't worry.
Totally.
If you're listening, I definitely hear myself.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that concludes our house scoring. So what we're going to do now is we're going to show you the rankings
Hooray!
of the houses out of 100. This is all of our math, all of our mathing.
I'm drumming.
That's not a drum roll. You're going ba 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 ba. Sure.
Does that work?
Yeah. All right. So our final rankings for the houses, and I put an asterisk on Triplets of Terror because it's automatically last because it's at 37. But this is what we came up with our added scores out of 100. Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire comes on top, 83. Insidious and Slaughter Cinema 2 tied for second at 82. A Quiet Place at 80. Monstros, Monsters of Latin America at 71.
The Museum, Deadly Exhibits at 69. Universal Monsters, Eternal Bloodlines at 68. Major Sweets, Candy Factory at 63. Goblin's Feast at 45. And Triplets of Terror at 37. You know how funny it is that Triplets of Terror only had
8 points less.
and only had 8 points less, but we both gave points to
Right.
and it wasn't even that much
Right.
higher.
I mean, look at how steep that drop off was from Major Sweets to Goblin's Feast. Like, we didn't have anything in the 50s. Like, that went from 63 to 45.
Yeah, those bottom two are like that.
But there's 4 houses in the 80s. That's really good.
Yeah, I mean, overall, like, I personally don't think that I have a standout house that is my favorite yet. Last year for us was Chucky. I feel like every time we went to horror nights and we were like, it's 1:00 in the morning. Should we leave? Do we want to do one more house? What would we always say?
Oh, God. We got to get home. But no, 10 more minutes.
Wait, Chucky. Let's go through Chucky again.
I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. I don't think I have a favorite house just yet. I want to go through them a couple of times just to see. And that's why we're doing the episode now. And then we'll probably do an episode later on with our kind of our final rankings and see where the scores compare and whatnot. But that is our house ranking. So we're going to move on to the scare zones. There are 5 scare zones, not as many as there are houses. There are 5 scare zones located throughout Universal Studios Florida. There's always 5. There's always one at the entrance, one in Hollywood over by the Bourne Show. There's one in New York over by Jimmy Fallon and the Mummy. There's one in San Francisco. And then there's one in Central Park where you go over to the kid area, like where DreamWorks Land
and
is
where
now.
the animal actors
Exactly. So those are always the 5 locations of the scare zones.
Yes.
So let's deep dive in and let's touch on Duality of Fear, which, frankly, I didn't even realize. What are you doing?
I was just gonna read it.
Oh, yeah, I haven't pulled it up yet.
Okay.
Danny was touching me. Like I thought she was trying to get my attention for something. So Duality of Fear. This is the scare zone that's right when you walk in the park. And so in past years, there's been a lot of characters and theming and things like that. But this year, take it away.
Duality of Fear. As soon as you enter the gates of Halloween Horror Nights, you must choose a path. Follow Sinister, the manifestation of visceral horror, or follow Surreal, the incarnation of unearthly terror. I'm just going to say, first off, when we first walked through this, I didn't even realize it was actually a scare zone this year.
It's technically a scare zone, yes.
So I will say that when you first walk in previous years, this area has been highly decorated.
Mm-hmm.
It either had like big areas where there were like, entertainment, dancing and doing scares. There was a ton of fog. There was one year where there was just like
The Pumpkin Lord.
It was like almost like like a tube of pumpkins.
Yeah.
One year we had a pumpkin lord who would come out and do like really scary, like little tiny shows. This year you had a couple chainsaws. Maybe you would see them. You could hear them. And then you had the 2 characters that you might be lucky to see. So I was shocked that this was considered a scare zone. I think technically they should have said 4 scare zones.
Yeah.
And that is why I'm going to give this one a 15.
Wow.
I was greatly disappointed in this scare zone just because I feel like it sets the tone for the event. It needs to have better theming next year.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And I say that with with somebody who loves Halloween Horror Nights. As soon as you get in, you feel the music, you see the fire, you smell the fog, you see the actors running around, you hear people screaming, and usually that theming hits you square in the eyeballs. Look like a normal day at Universal to me for the most part. So
this scare zone screamed to me that like, oh crap, we have a 5th one we have to do, don't we? and it just felt like, oh, let's build the trusses and throw some chainsaws, and every once in a while we'll have Sinister and Surreal go up on the thing and speak live to the crowd, which is cool.
But you rarely saw
But they're not
them.
up there the whole time.
Yeah.
Nor should they be. Let's be honest. But it's really cool when they are up there because they are super creepy. They've got this crazy voice modulation thing going on. And they're great. They're interacting with the crowd. They're having fun. I had a conversation in our video with, I can't remember if it was Sinister or Surreal, but I had a really fun conversation with one of them over in one of the other scare zones that we're going to cover. But this area literally just felt like the entrance. Like Danny was saying in the past, it was super themed.
Gorgeous.
There was fire shooting up from the trusses at one point.
It felt like a crazy rock concert
was like,
of the undead.
Yeah, it was crazy. But this year it just felt like, oh, we forgot about it until like 3 days before. So along the same lines as Danny, I'm going to give it a 20. So with
And that's out of 50 each.
yeah, so that's a total of 35 out of 100 for Duality of Fear, the entrance scare zone this year for Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to kick off our scare zones. Like,
I mean, don't get me wrong. You get vibes when you're walking in. You get that rock music, and you're definitely not entering Universal Studios. You're entering Halloween Horror Nights, but it wasn't a whole lot there.
I just feel like it really has to set the tone for the event, and luckily, it doesn't like by any means like ruin the event. You just walk through it and don't realize that you walk through a scare zone. So overall, I really hope to see either more like scare actors added to that area, or just for it to kind of evolve maybe over the season, or just next year. Hopefully they'll hear what people had to say about it.
Yeah.
So what do we have next?
All right. So up next, we've got Enter the Blumhouse. Escape a terrifying gauntlet of Blumhouse characters, from sinister sadists from The Purge and The Black Phone to Megan dancing in your nightmares. You've never known horror like this. I like the Purge movies. I liked Megan a lot. I've never seen Black Phone. Don't really care to see it. I liked the Happy Death Day kind of stuff they got going on, but the scare zone itself, it was nothing. You basically walk through, and there was a couple of walk around characters from The Purge, and like they were wearing like the masks and whatnot. But Megan, the guy from Black Phone, the other kind of major characters from the Blumhouse films were just on a stage, and it didn't really feel like a scare zone. It felt like a scare photo opportunity almost. But then the team members who are in charge of the area didn't want you to stop and take videos, and didn't want you to stop and take photos. And so it felt like this whole like convoluted mess in the Blumhouse scare zone, because it could have been so much more, but it was not. And so to me, it was kind of disappointing. So out of 50, I gave it a 28, just because I liked Megan. Megan is amazing. When you see her, like, she literally looks like a doll, and it's so creepy. And she does her little dance, and she is posing for photos. When I went the other night, it was like, oh, that's interesting, because they were not letting her do that before. But it is a 28 solely because Megan is awesome. Yeah. Otherwise, it would have been worse.
So I agree with you. I gave this scare zone a 25.
Did you draw Megan too?
Yeah, with her little thing that she like used in the movie.
Oh yeah,
when she unalived the guy in the elevator.
that's right.
But here, have you ever seen that viral video where the kazoo kid goes, "Who are you?" That's how I felt in that scare zone, because there were so many characters that I was like, aren't we supposed to know some of you guys except for Megan? And then when I went over to Megan at the beginning, the people were just like, "This is a moving walkway. Blah, 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 blah. Get out of the way." And I was like, I just wanted to see her dance. Like, geez, like, this isn't like moving traffic, but they were treating it like that.
Yeah, the Megan horde last year, even though we never saw them actually dance, we saw videos.
Yeah,
but that was so much. That was so much cooler than this.
And I just feel like the scare zone felt so empty for a Blumhouse, which has so many movies.
Yeah, shocking amount of horror movies.
Like, it just felt so very empty. And then again, who are you? I didn't know anybody in that scare zone.
Universal, you're welcome for the scare zone idea. Kazoo Kid.
Kazoo Kid?
Yeah, just a bunch of different kazoo kids just going fun, 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 fun. Who are you?
You're my special friend. Man, I love that.
Oh my God.
So what does that give our total for Blumhouse?
So with my 28 and your 25, that gives us a total of 53 out of 100. Not great. That's an F, unfortunately. But Enter the Blumhouse could have been so much better. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
Straight up.
I definitely expected more, especially from an IP scare zone.
Right. Filled with a bunch of different movie characters, but they're static on a stage. They're not really walking around,
and even the ones who were walking around were like you didn't have very many of them.
Right.
And we walked through those scare zones a bunch. So we got a very good idea of them.
For sure. All right, moving on to our next scare zone, and that is Demon Queens. And this is over in the Hollywood area, over by the Bourne Stuntacular.
Demon Queens. Get caught in an otherworldly hellscape ripped from the darkest corners of your mind. 4 merciless queens loyal to Surreal rule, surrounded by hordes of fanatical followers. So I personally thought that, I'm going to just say it like this.
Okay.
This was the best, I think, out of all the scare zones, not to give too much away.
Really?
Well, higher on the end, I would say. Not the best, but higher on the end. So I gave this a 35. It was fun to go through. I think it had good scares. I also think that this scare zone has the best space of every single year.
I agree.
But last year, the scare zone in there was so terrible. It was just so terrible.
Almost every year, the Hollywood scare zone or the New York scare zone is the best scare zone. And if not one, the other one is usually 2.
Yeah.
The best space to deal with.
Yeah. And so I drew a little queen. See
there
the
you go.
Queen.
Nice.
But I gave it a 35 because I think that they did a good job with a unique idea. Mm-hmm. And although it's not like my favorite, like out of the years of scare zones, I like that they were being creative and doing something new. And I think they pulled it off really well. So I give it a 35. What about you?
Hollywood is always a pretty solid scare zone, like I was saying. It's dark. It's very foggy. The music kind of flows really well through there. This was definitely better than the scare zone they had there last year. Not nearly as good as the year that they had Jack's brother, Eddie, and all those folks. I think that was 2 years ago. That was awesome. But Demon Queens was great, and you get to be up close and personal with Surreal in this scare zone when she's not in the front. She is roaming through this scare zone, which is pretty cool. And there's a really cool stage kind of like fit for a queen right in the middle. And that's kind of like the centerpiece of the scare zone. Wasn't my favorite. It was like slightly better than medium, like mediocre. So for me, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna say 30 for me.
Rave review.
Rave review,
So
but
far for the scare zones, this was a rave review though.
but D's get degrees, baby. So Danny's 35 plus my 30 equals a total of 65 for Demon Queens. All right.
So it's the best one so far
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
of the scare zones.
Yes. All right. Moving on to our fourth scare zone, and that was Swamp of the Undead. In Backwaters, Louisiana, you unwittingly wander onto private property where you're swamped by zombies born from the bodies of other trespassers who were killed and dumped in a nearby bog.
So, do you want me to go first for
Yeah,
this
go
one?
for it.
So, I gave this scare zone a 20
Woof.
with a little gator
Nice.
or a tiny dinosaur, but whatever you want to call it. One side note I want to say, the other day here in Orlando, we had a really intense storm, and apparently it pulled the tarps off of some of the corpses. So people were
no.
walking through in the middle of the day, and there were like corpses like
That's
just
terrifying.
out. And somebody was like, is this supposed to be out? And they were like,
Wow.
it's Halloween Horror Nights. But the person who posted didn't know. They were just freaked out that it was just like out. This scare zone just never does it for me. I understand that it's always been a scare zone.
Mhm.
It just feels like a walkway that's too crowded. And the fog always gathers really well there. It's just really, really hard to get a good scare because it's so crowded in that area.
There's a lot of trees in there, which is probably why the fog gathers really well. It's also a really tight space, so there's not a lot they can do with it. Part of me, like, we were down in near the DreamWorks area the other night, just kind of like getting a breather from all things Horror Nights for a minute.
Right.
But then we wanted to go and leave and get out, and so we had to walk through this. I wish there was kind of a way around it, because like through some of the other scare zones, like if you walk on the curb, the scare actors don't come and get you.
Right.
Sometimes you just need a break from, getting spooked or chainsaws or whatever's going on.
Right.
But through here, like there's no break. You have to go through it, which I guess is, it's fine. It's Halloween. It's Halloween Horror Nights. It is what it is. This one was kind of underwhelming, like it always is for the most part. Last year was kind of cool. I thought that the younger Dr. Oddfellow with the gold thing was kind of cool. But that was definitely the best that this area has ever seen. But I'm kind of along the lines of Danny's score. She gave it a 20. I'm giving it a 22. I'm feeling 22 as I wrote on the sheet there. So with Danny's 20 and my 22, this is a total of 42. 42 out of 100. No bueno.
But also, like we were talking about, this scare zone location puts it at an automatic disadvantage every year.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And I do feel like when we left the other day, like you were talking about, we literally walked through it, and I don't even know if we saw scare actors. So it was just kind of like I don't know. There's just so many people in there, and it's so small. So yeah, we have one more scare zone, and that is going to be Torture Fair. Come one, come all to Sinister's Renaissance Fair with the devious theme of medieval torture. Brave the gloriously gory homemade torture devices till you're put out of your misery.
All right.
Yeah, you go first with this one.
I like this. I like the scare zone. Last year, New York was also my favorite scare zone. It was the Vamp 69. It was like the spooky Woodstock. I thought that was awesome. What a great space to have. One really cool thing that we noticed this year, I don't even think it's technically part of the scare zone. I think it's just kind of theming for Halloween Horror Nights. But if you look at the facade of the Jimmy Fallon building, actually one of the windows up above has a really cool projection effect where it looks like somebody's getting murdered in the window.
People have been pointing that out on Twitter recently, and I keep seeing it, and I'm like,
yeah,
we pointed that out day one.
Yeah, because they definitely didn't do that before.
Nope.
So it was really neat, nice little like thematic touch for Halloween Horror Nights to see like windows being projected on. It's just like the little extra things that kind of make it feel cool. But I really liked Torture Fair. I thought it was great. Some of the walk around characters were fun. I liked the guy in like the cage. I liked the guy in the
bird cage.
Yeah, the guy in the bird cage. There was another guy like in the wood thing, like where his like head and his hands are like stuck in there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really cool characters walking around, but there's a stage at Torture Fair where there's a king and a queen that are basically torturing people in front of you. We got to see a couple of different ways that they were torturing people. We saw this, it wasn't a real person, but it was like a mannequin being like drowned, basically hung upside down and dunked.
With sound effects.
Yeah, you know. There was another guy who got his tongue cut off and ripped out. And then there was this closet looking thing with spikes. It kind of reminded me of the Chokey from Matilda. Where Miss Trunchbull throws them in the thing and there's spikes and stuff in it. Where this guy gets like pierced and whatever inside this closet. So fun little like stage show thing going on, and they basically make it seem like they're picking people out of the crowd to bring them up there to torture them. Obviously they're all scare actors, but it's a really cool touch to make it feel like they're pulling somebody from the actual crowd. So I thought that was really neat. This was by far my favorite scare zone of this year. And so with that, it's not perfect, but with that, I'm going to give it a 38, a ye old 38.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even see what you wrote. I wrote ye old 40 points.
Oh my God, that's funny. That's awesome. Ye old 40 points.
Wow.
Yes.
We should get married.
Right.
Well, we are.
Yes, someday.
Yes, someday soon.
Someday.
But Ye Old Torture Fair, I thought this was the best of the scare zones.
The best of the bunch.
Yeah, that's why I gave it a 40. I also probably would have scored it lower if I didn't feel like I was being super harsh on all the scare zones.
Right.
I will also say in comparison to last year, the do you remember the scare zone with, it was like from the 60s?
Yeah, it was the Vamp 69 that I was
Vamp
talking about.
69. Right. So Vamp 69, one thing that I was kind of thinking about is
The music
it
was
had
awesome.
well, the music was awesome, but it also had very big set pieces.
Yes.
So there were like cars and buses, and everything that they have in the scare zone this year was used last year on top of all of those vehicles too. So the scare zone felt very full, and in comparison, it felt a little empty to me. But you can't have buses for Ye Old Torture Fair. You just can't.
Right.
It felt a little bit emptier. And I will say that when you're coming from where the tribute store is, where that stage is that you were talking about, that feels really big and full, and and then there are a couple other pieces, and then they kind of stretched the scare zone out a little too much, and it started
It went
to kind
long, yeah.
But it was very sparse in terms of like set pieces, even though there were still people walking around. So I almost wish they had brought it in a little bit
Condensed
more,
it a little bit.
because it would have felt like a more robust scare zone.
Yeah.
And so that's why I gave it a 40. I do think it was the best one out of this year so far. And then so with my 40 and your
38, that gives us a total of 78. So by far the highest score for the scare zones. So that'll wrap it up for our scare zone scoring. And so I'm going to show you guys our final scare zone rank. So the 2024 Halloween Horror Night scare zones, out of 100, we had the Torture Fair, which was in New York. Demon Queens, Torture Fair had 78. Demon Queens had 65.
Enter the Blumhouse had 53. Swamp of the Undead had 42. And Duality of Fear had 35.
So very, very big range of scores. There between 35 and 78 for 5 different items.
I do have to say that if I brought home that as a grade, like my report card,
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
My family would not be happy with me.
Definitely not. Okay, so we've got one more thing to cover, and that is the ever-returning fan favorite, the leather-filled, fire-filled, sexiness-filled Nightmare Fuel.
Step right up to a dark circus, a new nightmare that carries with it a sinister curse. Get trapped in a thrilling spectacle of pyro and aerialists to the beat of pulse-pounding rock rhythms. And this year it's called Nightmare Fuel Nocturnal Circus. So,
real quick, there was a lot of rumor that this was not coming back. There was a lot of rumor that Nightmare Fuel was coming to an end after last year's Halloween Horror Nights. But the fans spoke, the fans were loud, and there was a lot of rumor that something along the lines of a variety show like a Bill and Ted or something else was coming back this year, which I honestly would have loved. But Nightmare Fuel is great. It's a really great show. The crowd is super into it. Every year they've got the Black Parade remix with Steve Aoki that the crowd is super into right before the show. Gets everybody all hyped. The dancing is incredible. The acrobatics are insane. The fire, the pyro, everything is just so great. Every single year, they always knock it out of the park. However, the Nightmare Fuel Nocturnal Circus is probably my least favorite Nightmare Fuel. I think last year was my favorite. I thought the music was so good last year. The one thing that I'm glad that they did take out of this show and change up this year was that insane bed trick that I still can't figure out. That was missing from this show because basically it's this guy who kind of falls in love with a girl from this spooky circus. And he's destined to save her and falls into a dream or a nightmare, I guess. And it's a wild story. I cannot wait to go back and see this again because the one time that Danny and I actually did see it, we got in there relatively late and we were like the far left corner seats. I want to get kind of towards the middle, higher up, and really take in the full effect of this show. I thought it was really solid for what it was. Like I said, last year was probably my favorite. So for that reason, I gave it a 39.
So I think that one of the reasons that we don't like this show quite as much as before is because, one, the soundtrack isn't quite as good.
No.
And two, because we had to watch it from the literal side. So we didn't catch most of the tricks and dancing. I will say that I will take Nightmare Fuel over Bill and Ted 10 out of 10 times. I fell asleep the first time I saw Bill and Ted.
To be fair.
No.
No. Let me
No.
speak.
Mm-mm.
To be fair, we went through an entire day doing both Universal Parks and then did Horror Nights, and we saw Bill and Ted at the very end of the night. So you were exhausted.
It was also boring.
It was great. Pop culture comedy is awesome.
Also, you made me watch a bunch of them the other day, like
great.
a couple weeks ago, and they were all terrible.
So great.
They were so terrible. So I would take Nightmare Fuel 10 out of 10 times. Bill and Ted can stay RIP. And I gave it 45 points. There is
Wow.
See, there's one of the aerialists all crazy in her hoop spinning around.
There you go.
And on the side is fire.
Okay.
But it looks like a backwards upside down jellyfish.
Yeah, it does.
So I gave it a 45 because at the end of the day, that's what you want from Halloween Horror Nights. You want a unique entertainment because, one, it's a people eater.
Certainly unique.
But it's a people eater. It's something more for you to do rather than just stand in line. It gets you off your feet. You get to see something cool and unique.
It's also great that there's 4 shows a night.
Yeah. And on top of that, a lot of these people who are performing in Nightmare Fuel are from different like talent shows, like what is it, like America's Got Talent and stuff like that. Like people who are known in the world for their talent. Mm-hmm. And so those people continue to come back every year. and people expect to see them, and you actually get to recognize the people in the show year after year.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. And so I would give it a 45. I just think that there's not anything like it. And I have to give them a big kudos for trying something new and unique other than just leather, sexy, loud.
Yeah. No, that was definitely a cool thing with this year's show. It's definitely different.
Yeah. And I do think that by the end of this year, I think I'm going to like it even more. But I don't know. I just feel like they knock it out of the park every time. And the tricks that they do are just insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
Out of 100, Nightmare Fuel Nocturnal Circus is the highest score we gave in this entire episode.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Nightmare Fuel Nocturnal Circus with my 39 and your 45 came out to 84. It's a great show. You definitely need to go see it. Go see it multiple times. You got to get there early, though, because the line is long. And they open the gates about 20 minutes before the show. Once you hear the music start, the gates are open. And it is loud. It is fun. It is sexy. It is unique. It is something you will not find anywhere else.
I do think that they will continue to bring this show back because I have not ever been to Halloween Horror Nights when this show has been on that you could get in at the last minute.
Right.
It is always a packed house from day one all the way through. And I think that says a lot about the show itself.
It's kind of grown a cult following. Even if you're not a regular Horror Nights goer, you probably know about Nightmare Fuel by this point. I think this is the 4th year in a row they've done it.
Well, the first year we saw it, we were
dumbfounded.
Yeah, I was like, what did I just watch? Is this, am I at Universal Studios still?
Yeah,
what is
right?
happening?
Right, some kinky strip club.
And on top of that,
crazy.
I think the craziest part was I turned to my right and there was this kid with his head on his chin or his head on his fist what am I watching? And I was like, oh my goodness.
You're too young for this.
You're too young for this child. Yes, just overall, I do love that show, and I want to see it. I want to see it more, and I want to see it head on. But I know that we have to get there earlier
for sure.
And there's only so many hours in Horror Nights for us to do stuff, but we will definitely get a chance to do that. But overall, let's take a look at our scoring.
Yeah. So the final house rankings. One more time, Danny. You want to run through them?
Sure. So for the 2024 Halloween Horror Nights house scores, and this was out of 100. Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, 83. Insidious, The Further, 82. Slaughter Cinema 2, 82. A Quiet Place, 80. Monstros, Monsters of Latin America, 71. The Museum, Deadly Exhibits, 69. Universal Monsters, Eternal Bloodline, 68. Major Sweets Candy Factory, 63. Goblin's Feast, 45. And Triplets of Terror, 37.
The final Scare Zone rank. We've got Torture Fair in New York with 78. Demon Queens in Hollywood, 65. Enter the Blumhouse in San Francisco, 53. Swamp of the Undead, Central Park, 42. And Duality Fear at the front entrance of Universal Studios, 35.
And then lastly, our overall score for Nightmare Fuel Nocturnal Circus is 84, the highest score of the entire night.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So
well, that was fun.
Yeah, these were all of our scores for our first impressions going through everything. And we had to go multiple nights. We were going to try to get everything done a little bit earlier and try to have an episode out. The thing that you guys might not know about Halloween Horror Nights is it's like doing a full park day condensed.
Uh-huh.
And then by the time you get home, it's usually I don't know.
Late.
And by the time you edit videos and order a Wawa sandwich, whatever you also do at the end of the night, you're sore the next day. A lot of times you're dehydrated, even though, most of the time we don't even drink there because it's just so stinking hot.
Mm-hmm.
You're still, you still find yourself dehydrated. So, it is an undertaking when you go to Halloween Horror Nights and do it correctly. And so we wanted to make sure that we got to go through each of the houses, each of the scare zones, and see Nightmare Fuel so that we could give you guys our full opinion. And we are going to continue going to Halloween Horror Nights this year.
Yeah.
So we can continue to evolve our opinions about these things and see how everything shakes out.
And we want to hear from you in the comments below on youtube.com/a couple of park hoppers, on Spotify. Comment on this episode. Have you been to Halloween Horror Nights? Let us know. We want to know if your scores stand up to our scores. What did you like better? What did you like not as much? Were your scores the same as ours? We want to know. We want to hear from you. Let us know if you're listening. Go ahead and rate, review, subscribe on all podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to it. Subscribe. So many people listen to podcasts and listen to our podcasts and don't subscribe. That's all you got to do. It's free. It takes 2 seconds to hit a button that says subscribe and just make it happen because it helps us out. It makes you do a really nice thing for free, and we greatly, greatly appreciate it. So with that said, we're going to get on out of here of this episode 148, scoring our 2024 Halloween Horror Nights houses, scare zones, and more. My name is Bill.
And my name is Danny.
We have been a couple of park hoppers like we always are. Stay tuned for more episodes. We're going to be back more and more. We just got this really fancy new computer. As you can see that this video here on YouTube is now in full HD. We were in not full HD before, but now we are. So you can see our beautiful faces in full HD on youtube.com/a couple of park hoppers. Go subscribe there as well.
You can also look forward to a couple of videos that we have coming out. One of them is going to be me after I got my wisdom teeth taken out.
Yes, in full HD.
In full HD. I am going to be having another dental surgery on Tuesday, but we are expecting to be up and running pretty soon after that.
Yeah.
But we'll take a look back at that fun car ride home after I got my wisdom teeth out. And, we took a little video of it for you guys to join us on. And
yes,
as you know, we bring you on all sorts of our adventures. We're in the holiday season, and then we've got, I don't want to say 2025 right around the corner. That feels really fast.
Oh boy. Yeah.
But, so many fun things to look forward to. And just overall, we are just so excited to be in the middle of the holiday season of Halloween. And we're so thankful that we're bringing you with us.
So with that said, we're going to get out of here. Thanks for listening. We love you. And until next time,
We will see you around the parks.
peace.